What up, everybody? Welcome to an off-season edition of Rowdy Racing. Here with Dawson and Ike right now. Ike, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Caleb Conrady, he's going to be joining us here in about 15 minutes. He's running a little behind. We're just going to kind of have like an off-season little conversation about new drivers, our favorite moments of the year, some of the lawsuit stuff. Probably just kind of whatever comes up. I feel like we might do a few of these in the off season, and I also think it'd be cool again this year to do we did a little preseason Thunder episode for this 24 season. We could probably do something like that, before Daytona rolls around for next season. So yeah, I think it'll be, y'all can look forward to I don't know, a few of these throughout the year. If anything crazy pops up or anything like that, I think it'll give us something cool to talk about. I also think it'd be cool. This is Burrell and y'all's idea, but like kind of an episode like I don't know if you call it like a history episode, but like our favorite moments ever. Maybe some of our like favorite Daytona moments, Talladega moments, just stuff like that. Maybe some of our favorite moments of like going to races and stuff. But yeah, just kind of keeping. I know most NASCAR podcasts kind of shut down, in the off season. So kind of just having a couple little things to throw at y'all for the next, we only got like 2 months really.
It's a quick off season.
Yeah. Not even 2 months, dude. We're already like halfway through.
No, we'll be at
December.
Roman Graham before we know it.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's probably like the first last week of January, first week of February, something like that.
Up. I mean, did you see the pictures of them putting the safer barriers up there?
I did.
The same ones in the Coliseum.
I saw the old people getting mad about it.
Yeah, leave it to the old people to get mad about driver safety.
Yeah, have you ever been to Bowman Gray?
I have not.
Have you been there? No, it's been on my bucket list even before this whole NASCAR stuff coming. It's just always been like so popular, It's been popular forever, but especially since like, in the last, I feel like I've been pretty involved in the NASCAR Tour de World for a good like 8 to 10 years, and just like that's where I learned more about all these like awesome races that happen that I didn't necessarily know about before the internet. I would really had no way to know about them because they happen all over the country. But stuff like the Chili Bowl, the Snowball Derby, the Snowflake, obviously I've known about the All American 400 for a long time because that's the one that happens in Nashville. But Bowman Gray is one of those things that I really learned a lot about from the internet, from Twitter, and just like seeing all the videos from there like every single week and flow. I think they broadcast there like every single week, and then the fact that a local short track can sell 17,000 tickets every single Saturday night is mind-boggling to me. And if 17,000,
especially where we're at, with racing, with NASCAR declining, for that to be able to hold strong is crazy.
It's crazy. So I feel like for that place to sell 17,000 tickets every single week, it's something to be seen in person. So it's been on my list to go for a long time. So one of these days I'm going to make it out to Winston-Salem and check that out.
It looks super cool. I was looking at tickets for the Clash and everything, but they're expensive.
Yeah, I figured.
It would have been a cool trip, though. I mean, that's like, I wish I'd gone to LA and seen it in the Coliseum just for the spectacle.
Yeah.
But Bowman Gray is almost a similar track to the track they had built in the Coliseum. So I don't think the racing is going to be that much different. But yeah, the atmosphere there and going on a night when they have, an actual Bowman Gray short track race, with the drivers there and the craziness, I think it would definitely be a sight to see.
Yeah. Do you think we see any of that craziness come out from the drivers just because it is Bowman Gray?
I don't know. I think they'd be scared of getting penalized by NASCAR before the season starts.
Yeah.
But I think we might see like some nods to it, a couple like fake outs or like something kind of tongue in cheek. But I don't know if we'll see anyone actually lose it on anybody.
Yeah, I kind of hope. There's some crazy stuff that happens at Bowman Gray, but
we've seen similar, like with Denny and Kyle Larson, we've seen similar moments happen in NASCAR. We've seen helmet throws. We've seen or was it Bowman? Who was it when Denny drove his car into the
during the
front of
burnout
him?
in
Like,
Martinsville.
that's a Bowman Gray kind of style moment.
Yeah.
So it's definitely possible, but in the clash, I don't think tempers aren't going to flare probably.
They, just to be honest, they didn't sell. The Bowman or the Coliseum is massive. I think the Coliseum holds like 70 or 80,000 people. For football and such. And NASCAR is just not going to sell 80,000 tickets in LA. And so, me personally, and I have this opinion about a lot of racetracks, not just the Bowman Gray situation, but having 17,000 people there right on top of each other, the atmosphere that's going to feel awesome. That's the same at any other racetrack. They've taken some stands out and really got the atmosphere kind of back in a way. Instead of having 250,000 seats with 100,000 people in them, just having 100,000 seats with 100,000 people in them is a lot cooler to me.
Yep.
So the atmosphere, I really do think the Clash is going to be like pretty lit. And you're right there on top of, you're right there. So it's going to be, I think it'll be pretty lit.
I think that is such a big factor too, with how aggressively the drivers are going to race, because it's already hard to feel the crowd from inside the car.
Mm-hmm.
And then when everyone's spread throughout the Coliseum or spread throughout empty stands, like you're saying at Indy or wherever, it definitely, I'm sure, obviously you're a competitor and you're going to be racing, but like when you have that extra level of motivation and you feel the people, that will, hopefully lead to more aggressive racing and some more excitement.
Yeah, I think it will. And like I said, people are right there on top of them. So it's going to be not necessarily people throwing stuff at them, but it's like, I feel like that'll be almost happen,
that would be kind of great.
I was at me and my dad were at Talladega when Jeff Gordon had all the beer cans thrown at him. Back in the day, I think that was like 2004. I was like 8 years old. My dad, it's at the end of the race, and like no one left. Like it wasn't, normally the race is over, people are, they're starting to leave, and like nobody left, and just hearing like a full just right by your head. My dad turned around and looked at me. He was like, just sit down. He kind of hovered over me. He's like, this is going to get wild. And I was like, and it did. I mean, just seeing,
those are the moments you remember, though. I mean, that's that's what makes the sport great.
Caleb just texted and said he'll be on in just a second. So we barely even got into this before he's hopping on here.
That's good news for all of our listeners who are sick of us already. They're like,
yeah. But yeah, so let's go in. Let's dive in here to some of these new drivers and new places. How about that?
Yeah, we got a lot of changes coming up this year, driver-wise and team-wise.
Also, the Clash is on February 2nd. Okay, I was wondering, so it's close to the end of December. So they'll do February 2nd. The Super Bowl will be February 9th, I assume, and then Daytona 500 is the 16th, and they'll qualify and do all that, duels and all that stuff the week of, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th will be
that sounds right.
all of that stuff. But yes, let's talk about new faces and new places for 2025.
Yeah, there is a lot of them.
What is before we go through the whole list, because I really do want to talk about some of this, what's kind of your most surprising, most excited, I guess I should say?
I think the most surprising, most surprising for me now is Riley Herbst joining 23XI in a third car just because of all the lawsuit and everything. It seems like a weird time for Denny to try to add the third team.
Yeah.
Like, I get it, and I get that's part of the reason the lawsuit's happening, but also, I don't know. I feel like for a guy who is, supposedly so anti-NASCAR right now and fighting them on trying to make it more team-friendly, it seems weird that he would be investing to that third car and adding, more money and more time and more, just more, I guess, momentum to the sport through that. I think it's cool. I think it's great.
Yeah.
But I do think that surprises me just because of where he's at with NASCAR right now.
Yeah, it seems too like Denny's not afraid or like doesn't hate investing in NASCAR. But he also wants like NASCAR to invest in him. Yeah. And by him, and, like the teams, like
respect him for putting his money first and being like, I'm willing to go in on this and I'm willing to really grow with the sport. And, I don't blame him for wanting to see it in return.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know. Herbst is a good driver. I don't know if that's who I would have thought they would pick for that car.
Yeah.
But I do think he comes with some funding.
I think that's the biggest
And
thing.
that's probably the biggest thing. And he's shown talent. He's looked decent in Xfinity.
Yeah, that's his when he started out in Xfinity, it was brutal at first. And then it's, gradually he's gotten better. He's got a couple wins. And then I'll give it to him that race at Indianapolis, like where he's like sliding and making the pass for the lead. Like all that's really cool. But I'm with you. I would, if you're going off of, and I think everybody would agree with this, if you're going off like pure talent, I don't know if Riley Herbst gets that ride.
No, but that's not where we're at with the sport right now.
True. Either. And I compare it, when he I think it's going to be a major uphill battle for him in the Cup Series. Just because I saw the battle he had, in the Xfinity Series when he got started out, I think it's going to be obviously 10 times as worse. Just, getting started in the Cup Series. The Cup Series is so much, harder and just everything about it. And like even a guy like who I'm not a fan of by any means, but I think he's very talented, Ty Gibbs. To see someone as talented as him come into the Cup Series into a Joe Gibbs ride, not a brand new ride, a really, a great team that, obviously his name's on the door, but like even he's had a big 2-year learning curve in this. And like if someone
even
like Ty Gibbs
had a big learning curve,
yes,
everyone does.
So I think that Riley will definitely, he'll fall into that as, as well.
100%. And I think we got to remember too, like this team as a whole, obviously it's a new car. It's the first time they're running 3 cars, but this whole team is still relatively new.
Yeah.
And they've shown a lot of speed, but they still have a long way to go before they're competing week in and week out, with the big
there
boys.
Is. Yeah, that's a
yo.
What up, dog?
Here I am, here I be, repping homies with zips that start with 3.
We are all we have talked about so far is the clash being at Bowman Gray and how we both want to go to Bowman Gray.
Oh, dude, absolutely! I want to see a fist fight, and I want to see 15 wreck cars in a 14-car field.
We'll we'll get a sponsor to go send us down there. We'll do some podcast content at Bowman Gray one week.
Golly, sick. If there was a censor button, this whole podcast would sound like beep. After that,
we talked about that. And then we have a link in the group chat. We're going to kind of go through all the moves.
Yeah.
First and foremost here, like all the moves from the year. Mainly Cup Series, and maybe throw in a couple of Xfinity and truck guys. And maybe not any truck guys, because I don't really know anything about those guys, to be honest.
Yeah, and this cracks me up because this page just keeps going on and on because it's so ridiculous how much changes this year.
So we were kind of starting out here with like our most surprising move that we thought. Ike was saying Riley Herbst, coming into 2311 and with the lawsuit and all that stuff.
Seems like a weird time for them to add a third team. That's just the surprising part to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. That makes total sense. Well, it doesn't make any sense, but it makes sense why it's your most surprising move for sure. Golly.
I have a couple. The most surprising thing that came out of nowhere for me was like Justin Haley back to Spire, and also doing it in the middle of the season. That was like, I think Spire was just like done with Corey LaJoy. He just all the Corey LaJoy things that happened this year just kind of put that nail in the coffin, I think.
Yeah.
And I know he helped like get that team started, obviously. But man, he just had a rough year, and every rough problem he had was his own fault. And I think that was like a big part of why that switch happened. And I also think Justin Haley's a hell of a race car driver. And I think that we found that out even more when he got put in Rick Ware cars and freaking ran Rick Ware cars in the top 10, for the first time ever. I feel like that's a very
yeah, and he has a cup win. I mean, it was a rain win, but he does own a cup win.
Well, everybody praises Bubba Wallace's rain win so much. So I think rain wins should be talked about.
Right?
I think rain wins should be talked about more since they're so talked about nowadays. But so that was surprising, I guess. But let's see. One of the most, I know we're going to go through this whole list, but here's my other one. I thought it was weird. So into 23, when Trackhouse makes this huge deal about signing Zane Smith, he's coming off of Truck Series championships and being in the Final Four, I think 3 years straight. Like, he was just hot on the block. You know, they make this. It was a huge deal. You know, like he was at all the. They did this big whole thing in the garage with all the Trackhouse stuff. You know, it was like a big deal, big signing. And then he doesn't even ever make it into never touches a Trackhouse car in any series, and he's already let go. And supposedly he's going to Front Row. They don't have that. That's not even for sure yet. Even at whatever today's date is, that's not even sure that he's going to Front Row. But I thought that was like super weird. Yeah, everything I just said, I thought was super weird to make like a huge deal about it, get like the hottest kid on the block, and then he never even touched your seat of your car. I thought that was like pretty odd.
That is really weird.
Yeah, I remember how big of a deal that was too when it all got announced. I mean, it was on every podcast. Everybody was trying to disseminate the entire contract and how it all shake out. And I think everybody kind of knew it was going to be like one of these three guys will be our guy, but we only have room for two of them. So out of those three guys, the Shane, the Zane Smith, and Suarez, and whoever else was in that little circle, it was almost like y'all are trying for a third spot here. So keep your heads up. And I mean, I give it, I give it to you. It is surprising that they made such a big deal about it, but I mean, he had moments where he looked good, and then most of the season, I mean, it was just kind of mid-tier, lackluster kind of stuff, but. I mean, when you're in a weird contract spot like that, it's like, obviously you should try to do good every week, so it's no excuse, but it makes you wonder, like, how in was he ever, or was this all just publicity, just so that way they thought they looked like he was going to do something?
Yeah, his year started out horrible, and then from Nashville on, when he got that second place finish in Nashville through all the 18 overtimes, there's a stat out there, like his average finish from Daytona 500 to Nashville was like awful, and then from Nashville to the end of the year was actually like pretty solid. So it was kind of a weird year all the way together for Zane, but man, just to think you're going to Trackhouse and then go to Front Row, which I don't think Front Row is no slouch anymore. I'm not gonna lie, they did a lot this year, so I'm not like completely shitting on Front. I'm not shitting on what happened or where he's going if he's. Like, even on this article, it says he could head to Front Row, and I've seen articles on Twitter, like, it's just not even for sure yet. So no one really knows where he's going. And supposedly, Kevin Harvick, I believe, talked about this, but, like, apparently he kind of pissed some people at Ford off going from the Ford to Chevrolet thing, and it was kind of like just, forgot about the whole, what got him here, because he was a Ford developmental driver his whole career up until this season when this whole contract thing happened. And it kind of seems that Ford was like kind of apprehensive on even having him back. And I feel like that's still kind of like the roadblock in this situation.
Man, that's just such a shame. OEMs get in the way of contract negotiations and plate racing being good.
Yeah, I think there's more money that OEMs have in NASCAR than we could ever imagine, and I think that's why there's more money in it now than ever, and I think that's why they have such a voice when back in the day there wasn't one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you never heard about that back in the day, really.
And now all these teams trying to be their primary, the primary team of each manufacturer, and it's just like if you sign Zane Smith, who knows? Maybe Ford's telling them they're like, you're not going to be our primary team if you got Zane.
Yeah.
Not that Front Row would be, but it's that kind of vibe. Like, I don't know, it's hard to say.
Yeah, and you're right in the middle of a giant lawsuit, and you're not even sure if you were able to get the charter or not, and the question marks just remaining up in the air around that entire organization. I mean, I'm totally behind him, and I'm here for him doing all that, but it definitely doesn't make it any easier with them signing new drivers, trying to get them into a new ride, trying to put old drivers in new places, and I don't know. It's just such a mess right now. We could talk about it 16 ways from Sunday, but it just doesn't stop being the weirdest season of all time. I mean, 2024 has been the biggest topsy-turvy event in NASCAR history as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I do want to say I'm a big fan though of Bob Jenkins, who owns Front Row, because he's your old school, just kind of put your money where your mouth is kind of NASCAR Cup Series owner. Like he didn't make his money. He's a millionaire, but he's not loaded. He loves racing, and he's put everything into this to be a Cup. What I think here soon is going to be a really good Cup Series program. So props to him for sticking it out this long, and also getting under the Denny Hamlin, Michael Jordan wing of all this, and hey, we'll stand up with you and we'll fight this with you. I kind of like just the underdog, scrappy, do anything mentality that he's had his whole entire career. Because Front Row's been a thing since I was a kid. Since we were all kids. It was, early 2000.
And it wasn't until this year, till Michael McDowell could put him on the front row every other damn race, it seemed like.
most polls in NASCAR this year, which is crazy.
Dude, how weird is it going to be to see someone else in that loves car?
Oh, man. Yeah, somebody else in the 34. I'm going to call them Michael McDowell for probably 2 years before I ever finally get it fully right.
Hey, props to Michael McDowell, though, too, for sticking with him, all these years, because he talked on, I think it was Junior's podcast or something, he could never sign more than a year deal. He stuck with, because they just never knew what was going to happen. All the things, they don't have the money to be yeah, we're going to just, have you for 5 years and $20 million or whatever. It's just been a year by year deal with his whole career. And props to him for sticking it out. And two, I heard a lot of people say too, that's why he's Michael McDowell's older now and he wanted some stability. So he got a stability type contract at Spire.
Yeah.
So props to Michael McDowell for sticking it out, getting a couple wins, Daytona 500 and a shit ton of poles, and, being there for the whole ride. It's a pretty cool story all the way around.
Talk about one of the best guys in the garage, too. I mean, Ashlyn was saying when she was at NASCAR, media day, he brought his 500 ring in and let all the, camera people, all the production people wear it, try it on, and take pictures with him and his kids with it. That's just cool. He just seems like a great guy who just loves to race.
Super chill dude. I mean, you just don't get any better than him winning the 500 and coming out being like, I didn't even know how many more races I was going to have, and I'd never won before. I was just starting to think that racing, winning a race was never going to be in the cards for me. And then gets him that one, gets him another one same year.
And then his other win, he freaking
talk about
dominated.
A guy that's just going out with a bang right now. I mean, I know he's not anywhere. He's not trying to retire tomorrow, but he's been around for a while. So good for him for getting out here and
on the come up too. I mean, he's gonna have a chance to do something with Spire.
I think he runs well. I think he does run well at Spire, and props to him for getting the retirement bag for whenever it happens, and kind of like you said, just having a great solid NASCAR career.
Yeah.
All right, Caleb, what's your most surprising one before we dive into all of them? You look very confused.
He's surprised by a lot of them.
Caleb, can you hear us? I think we've lost Caleb.
I think so.
He's
I bet you. Oh
my God! When I said you look confused, I didn't realize he couldn't hear us.
I bet you he's gonna say the 88 coming out of retirement as a Trackhouse number.
Oh, he said I can't hear anything. 1 second. Oh God. Okay, right when we ask Caleb a question, he falls out.
Typical.
I'll tell you one that I'm really excited about, that I didn't necessarily see coming, but I'm excited about it, is Chase Briscoe to the 19.
Mm-hmm. I think he's going to dominate. I don't know. Well, dominate's a strong word, but
yeah,
I think he's going to look really strong in that car.
Yes, me too. And I'm a big fan of dirt racing. So him being, a dirt guy and kind of changing Joe Gibbs' mind on dirt racing, it seems. And because he wouldn't let his guys race dirt and all that. And now Bell and Briscoe and Kyle Busch doesn't drive for him anymore, but all those guys are running the Chili Bowl and dirt cars and stuff now.
Yeah, no, it is pretty cool, and it's such an NFL coach mentality to not let them race dirt. Like that's like they got the clauses in their contracts they can't go play pickup basketball or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
That's so typical, but it's cool to see him coming around on that because I think it helps the drivers. I mean, they're having fun, they're learning out there on the dirt track. It's different. Like,
oh, dude, nowadays they don't have, since you cannot practice and test and stuff as much as you could. How are these guys going to stay sharp? I've said it on this podcast before, but iron sharp is iron. I think a race car driver being behind the wheel of a race car is like it doesn't matter what race car to me. I don't care. But being behind the wheel of a race car is going to help no matter what. And especially in today's time when they get before this year, it's like some tracks don't even get practice on. Like, iRacing can only do so much. Like, you got to be behind the wheel of some of these cars. And I think that's why now you see guys like Kyle Busch, who's literally did not race dirt, and going back and like racing all these dirt races every single weekend all across the country because he's like, he needs to stay up on his game. It's just what it is. And I think that's the case with, I mean, you got more guys doing other types of racing now than there's ever been in NASCAR history. And it's because they can't race NASCARs all the time. So you got to go do something to practice up and stay sharp.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
That was weird.
I asked you a question and you just looked confused, and I was like, damn, you look confused. And then you were still looking confused. You weren't talking to us. I was like, I don't think
I couldn't hear y'all for a second. Now I can't hear me. Now I'm back. All right, cool. We figured it out, fixed it all up. But no, I've always been of the opinion, like, I get where the teams have been coming from, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't have tried to make some sort of attempt at trying to control their driver. And I get that you're making a huge investment in this person to go out there and drive your race cars. But at the end of the day, I just can never get behind somebody telling somebody you can't do something because I'm already paying you to do this. Like, I would not want to sign that contract if I was in a driver's shoes. Like, I get where they're coming from, but if it's your only option, it's one thing. But, man, I just cannot get behind them saying, you're not allowed to go out and race dirt. You're not allowed to go and do this because we're afraid you might get hurt or injured. And it's like, well, damn, I could get hurt or injured in a NASCAR race too. Like, let's not forget about that. So, like, if it's me risking my life, I think it should be my prerogative. And if you want to put it into my contract, if I get injured doing something else that I forfeit any guaranteed money I was supposed to make, then whatever. So be it. But I've just never been about the teams trying to control the drivers, because that just kind of gets in the way of entertainment for the fan. Like, this is all about drivers and fans to me at the end of the day. Yes, teams are important. We get behind teams, but I'm not going out there and cheering like a Blaney win when Logano wins just because they're teammates.
Totally. And another thing, like, everybody talks about keeping grassroots racing alive. Like, these owners that don't let their drivers go do that, that's part of what helps it keep it alive. And when these drivers show up, they, double their ticket sales and, make way more money. And, like, nowadays, I don't know if y'all are following it on Twitter, but, like, Kyle Busch is literally racing, like, 4 nights a week Kyle Larson style right now. Him and his son, they have their midgets, and Kyle's been racing a sprint car and doing pretty decent with it. And he raced his first midget race the other night and was freaking leading in his first ever midget race and blew an engine.
Damn.
But like he posted a video which I thought was pretty cool. Like, he didn't even know how to get in and out of the car.
I saw that video. No, he's trying to pull himself out. Yeah. He's like pulling up from the top bars, and he looks like, I can't get out of here.
Yeah. And he literally posts like, I can't get my fat ass in here, something like that.
Can't get my fat ass out of the car.
One, just seeing that side of the personality, but two, like, Kyle Busch, dude, like, going fucking Kyle Busch, like, going to racing these midget cars and like racing all over the country is like cool as shit to me. I love it. And then Kyle always talked about back in the day, he was one of the drivers. He was like, I didn't have to race other stuff because he literally used to run the full Truck Series schedule and the full Busch Series schedule, and obviously the full Cup schedule. Kyle Busch used to get more seat time than anybody. I think that's one of the main reasons Kyle Busch was freaking incredible. The only driver literally that I can think of that was absolutely dominant, obviously one of the best ever, but did not do anything else was Jimmy Johnson. Every other you name them, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, every other badass race car driver, Dale Earnhardt, all these guys, they all raced other stuff. And I feel like that's just Jimmy Johnson's just a generational guy, and his opinion was like racing a dirt car doesn't help me in NASCAR. But he also is in the time when Chad Knaus had him testing 6 days of the week and racing on Sundays. So like he didn't need to go race anything else or try anything else. They're literally turning 500 to 1,000 laps a week in those race cars. So like, why did Jimmy Johnson need to go do anything else?
Right, and even him, he tried it after he retired.
Yeah, and he did. Exactly. And it's like,
you gotta think about it like, if you're doing that every single week, at some point you need to switch it up just to get your mind right. You know, you can't, whatever it is you're doing, you know, music or racing or baseball or anything, like you can't do the same thing every single day and expect that you're not going to get burnt out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's important to let them race dirt or do whatever they need to do. Like that's another factor.
Like I said, iron sharpens iron, and it'll be that way forever.
Absolutely. But no, I loved your point about the grassroots part of it too, how it's helping out with so much of that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where the newest talent's going to be coming from. So give them a good place to race and let them race against professionals. Get them out there. And for once, we have to complain about the teams doing something we don't like instead of NASCAR. So it's kind of a nice change, really.
Coming from this is like a personal standpoint. They got to see with my own eyes. So Dixie Speedway is about 45 minutes north of Atlanta. And every single year, both Atlanta races, NASCAR drivers would be out and race at Dixie on Saturday nights. They'd bring a dirt track car out. And we went and saw Bill Elliott and Tony Stewart and all them race back in the day. And it, one, like I said, sells tickets. But two, all those guys that are racing, like they get to go out and be like, dude, I beat Bill Elliott. You know, and I'm not talking about nowadays Bill Elliott. I'm talking about 20 years ago. You know, 02 Bill Elliott still winning races.
Height of his prime, $1 million Bill.
Exactly. So it's like those guys, like, it's just a big deal all the way around to get to go race those guys. And then there's a super viral picture that comes up about once a year. And Davey Allison and Dale Earnhardt were raced. They're at the Atlanta race, and they land a helicopter in the infield of Dixie Motor Speedway. Their cars are already there, and they hop out of in their cup suits. They hop out of the helicopter and walk to their car sitting on the grid, getting ready for a race.
Badass.
And I'm like, fuck yeah! And it was like 88 or 89 or something like that. And I'm like, holy shit! I would have just. Fuck, I'd have loved to have been there.
Our lives would have been better if we were born in about 79.
Yes, I agree. But, yeah, all the way around. It just these guys doing all this racing, I love it. It gives me something else to watch, too, because they're all just going crazy right now in the off-season. Like, obviously, y'all know Kyle Larson races 6 nights a week, so we get to keep up with him and all the stuff he does all across the country, too.
Love it. Love it.
It's super cool.
All right, Caleb, what's your most surprising oh, sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, what's your most surprising or that caught you the most off-guard move of the year?
The silly season switches?
Yeah, new cars. And then, like, when we get done with this, I know we're kind of everywhere, but, like, we'll kind of go down and kind of say what we think maybe about each one or something.
So I've got 2 that are surprising, one more so than the other. My first one is something that didn't happen. I don't know if y'all have already talked about this one, so stop me short if y'all have. Corey Haim not getting a ride in anything. Do we even know where he's going at all? Is he sticking in trucks?
Yeah, he's signed to the same truck next year. He'll win about
15 races, so that was easily my most surprising thing. I mean, he ended the damn year talking about how he's probably gonna have to go back and work for construction because he just doesn't know what to do anymore.
No, that was Smith. Smith.
Damn. It's been a while since I saw that race. Either way, Corey Haim not getting selected, though, has been just something that surprises me all the way around. I know it's been kind of talked about all around, but when you got some kid that's out here winning practically every single truck race, and the only reason he doesn't win it is because of the other guys that have already started to get rides over him. I mean, it was the only people that he's lost to, and he still beats them week after week after week. You've got him out here performing like he is. You've got Toyota rides opening up for him all across the board that he could jump into. And it just amazes me that out of all the different moves, we got a Riley Herbst to go up to Cup before we had a Corey Haim even get an Xfinity ride. And, I mean, he's kind of – the hardest part for him is that he's in a Toyota, and there's the least number of options of places for you to go. But why is he not one of the people that's more in the conversation? There may be a reason that I don't know about, but that one surprises me a lot. That I would expect to have seen him get moved up into a new ride rather than become a Truck Series regular that he obviously doesn't want to be. He wants to move up. Who doesn't? But
yeah, he doesn't want to be the next Matt Crafton.
Absolutely. I mean, who does? Geez, God.
Nobody wants to be the next Matt Crafton.
Go out and beating up on 19-year-old kids when they got their back turned on
them. This is stupid, but this is the only thing that I've heard is it's like him and Ty Gibbs had a big issue back in the day, and that issue has carried over since. They've been racing each other since they were kids, and that issue has always been an issue. And I hear that's what they say on Twitter is why he's not in a Joe Gibbs
Maybe that's
car.
why Gibbs put him into an Xfinity car so he'd never have to be around him in the truck.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like one little fight you have when you're like 9 years old? Like,
yeah, still mad about it.
Out of a huge cup
That was
ride.
my lollipop.
That's Ty Gibbs to a T, though. That's Ty Gibbs to a T.
That is some Ty Gibbs right there. Yeah.
Dude, freaking Joe Gibbs Xfinity Series lineup next year. I can't even tell you who the drivers are because they are so no-name guys.
Golly.
They're just nobodies. And you got guys like Corey Haim sitting there ready to go, and they just got like William Salowich and just all these guys who just don't even have anything on their resume compared to what Corey Haim has.
But they not have funding. Thing. You know, we talked about it with Hurt. Like, it's talent doesn't rule everything anymore.
Oh, my God. If we could get – I mean, there's never going to be getting money out of NASCAR, but if we can get NASCAR to not be all about the freaking money every 5 minutes and just put some talented people in some positions – we probably have twice the amount of money to work with because people would be watching.
Dude, that should be
just go back to 1985 to 2005.
Yes,
you're there.
Exactly. Like I get money's always going to be a thing and funding is always going to be important, but damn, there's a reason you're getting sued right now. Like, let's be honest.
Dude, if Bud Light really wants to like get their image back, they just should start a NASCAR team and hire just the most talented drivers.
Be phenomenal.
Just like get Corey Haim and like get like. They'd be people would be back on Bud Light.
I don't care if I'd be shitting through a screen door. I would drink Bud Light if they started a racing team like that.
Yeah,
it would be awesome.
If you're ever constipated, drink 12 Bud Lights and eat some Domino's pizza, dude, and you won't be constipated.
You'll have headache,
anymore,
you'll have heartburn, and you'll have indigestion, but you will no longer have diarrhea. you will now have diarrhea.
Yeah.
Oh, so my second one that I had here was Chase Briscoe making the move over to Toyota into the 19 for Joe Gibbs Racing next year. Him getting out of a
That's
Ford.
what we were.
Did y'all bring this one up earlier?
That's how the whole dirt track racing, like people letting them come into the car. Not that you go ahead and say what you were going to say, but I agree. That was one of
that
mine.
is one of mine for sure.
I'm excited. For
he was racing like the Ford racing program. I can't remember the exact name of the sponsor. I probably have the diecast, but it's probably black and on fire somewhere. I had that diecast of that car because I loved it. That '98 that he drove in Xfinity. And I loved the paint scheme on it, but I mean, it was like a Ford program that sponsored him. Like he was all in on Ford.
It was like Ford Racing Performance. Like they funded the whole deal.
So they were just pushing him through, and he gets the ride over at Stewart Haas Racing, and it's like, hell yeah, this is awesome. He's working for his hero, driving his hero's number. Grew up watching this dude race, and goes out there and makes a bunch of wild moves as a Ford driver. And you can just tell that they are all about him as a driver from the very beginning. And now he makes the switch over to Toyota. With all of the crazy amount of stuff that's going on, I know obviously his team's shutting down, but there was front row he could have gone to. There was, I don't know what other opportunities he could have possibly taken, but maybe that's all it came down to is like, there's this offer from Toyota or this.
But here's what he said in his interview. He said there was only one team who did not ask him how much money he could bring, and it was the 19 car.
There you go. Look at that.
That car's completely funded through from Johnny Morris. Johnny Morris has that car. He's going to keep that car, and that just is what it is. So he doesn't have to. One, you're going to be in one of the best 4 cars on the track, and 2, you don't have to worry about bringing. And I'm sure High Point is big on him. They are big on him, so I'm sure they do sponsor some cars.
Or
but
secondary
when the car's
sponsor.
already funded, what's it? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's a lifetime opportunity.
I would take it as well. It just was amazing to me to see that Ford let him go. And, I mean, you had so many people talking before that deal got announced. Like, there's no way they're going to let Chase Briscoe go, but he is in the talks for the 19.
Yeah. It was Kevin Harvick also said that Ford got really mad at him for taking the pictures when the deal got announced. And they had no problem with him taking the pictures with the team and the car and everything, but he had the big Toyota logo on his shirt. And that was a big ordeal for having the Toyota logo while he was still a signed
Ford guy. They're so sensitive. I swear. Good Lord.
They
Shit
are,
drives
but
me nuts.
Something. I wouldn't want to burn the bridge either, though. I mean, me personally, I wouldn't want to burn the bridge of a team, OEM that got me.
I mean, you don't have to burn the bridge, but when a guy in a suit comes walking down telling me how mad he is about what's on my shirt, like, dude, who are you? Like, you are not Ford. Ford is a company. You are a human being. Like, what do you have that you're going to tell me? Chase Briscoe probably makes more than some of those guys getting mad at him anyway. But either way. That was my second surprising move of the year that I was most like impressed by, that he ended up making that move over.
I'm excited for it. Like I said, that's how the conversation got started. I said I was excited that it finally broke down Joe Gibbs to let his drivers go race dirt in other race cars and not just there. So now we get Christopher Bell back into a sprint car. We get Christopher Bell back at the Chili Bowl. You're going to have Briscoe and Bell at the Chili Bowl racing each other against Larson. There's like 7 Cup guys doing the Chili Bowl. It's Ricky Stenhouse, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Briscoe. There's like 7 guys doing it, and that goes back. I know we just had that whole conversation. I'm not going back to that, but I'm just saying, like, I think he probably did like Larson. Rick Hendrick had that same clause before. My guys aren't racing dirt cars, and Larson was like, "Well, I'm not signing a deal here if I can't race a dirt car." I guarantee you, Briscoe had other options, so he was like, "Look, I want to keep racing He owns a team. It's like I want to keep racing. And so then it's like, well, Gibbs wanted him bad enough, and that opens the door right back for Christopher Bell, and he can bring his guys back out and all that too. It helps the economy of racing because all these guys own their own cars and they have their own teams.
The economy of racing. I love that term.
Nah, that's huge. Let's talk about the 88 being back on track full time this year too. It's been a while since we've seen that.
I love it.
I love it.
And it's a Kiwi.
I'm a huge SVG fan, so I'm all in. I love SVG. Yeah. I love the 88. Trackhouse is awesome. I've said it on here before. I think working at Trackhouse nowadays is probably like working at DEI in the early 2000s. It's like the place that like everybody wanted to be and work with and party with and all that. I just feel like they have that.
Hell yeah!
And
I wonder, have they dropped any paint schemes? I don't know if
they dropped the WeatherTech one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Did he have the same font on the 88, or is it a new font?
It's different. It's a little more bubbled.
That's probly smart.
Yeah, it's not the straight edges, like it was. It's like a bubbled-ish looking 88. But the WeatherTech paint scheme looks just like the 97 WeatherTech paint scheme that he had. Very similar to the whole red, white, and blue thing.
Okay, yeah.
Which is also funny that he's like the Australian guy that's rocking the the red, white, and blue car, which is like, it's hilarious.
It is pretty funny. I mean, I guess Australia, their flag is kind of bluish with some red and white on there.
Yeah.
Close enough. I think he's gonna do well though. I mean, I think he's shown a lot of potential in the races he's done.
He's a lock in the playoffs. I guarantee you he's a lock in the playoffs. For sure.
But I think he'll look good on the ovals too.
Yeah, this is the thing. I've told Caleb this exact thing before. So, we've had road course ringers, these specialty guys that come into racing, NASCAR, and they always run good. They run well, whatever, but and they'll sneak a win out every now and again. AJ Allmendinger or Marcus Ambrose or Boris said, whatever. They'll sneak a win out. There has not been a guy that is so dominant like SVG is, that's like come out and done this. Like,
over full time in the prime of his career.
Crazy
for an up and coming team. I mean, it's a big investment by Trackhouse.
It's crazy, and he just proves it every single week. And somebody did a stat. They did a whole recap of this whole entire season. stage by stage. If you look at like his first stage at Atlanta to the second stage, the third stage, it gets better. And then if you look at like Atlanta, the second time they get there, the third stage was better than that first stage, and it goes up. And his whole entire season, literally, other than like some wrecks, his whole season literally went up like this on every racetrack. And it just proves like dude is a racer, a racer's racer, and I'm pumped for it. He's a lock in the playoffs because I promise he wins one, if not multiple, road course races next year. I promise.
Yeah, and I think if he just goes in there and if they can just put the mentality around them that even though he's like a grown man, if they could just put the mentality that he's still a rookie in the Cup Series, so we still have to treat it like this is all a learning process, and give him 2 to 3 solid years behind that car, I guarantee you he makes it to the round of 8 every time because he's going to get those exactly like you're talking about. He already is a dead lock on these road courses, and the rest of the garage has got to elevate their ability if they're going to beat him every single week.
And Justin Marks talks about too, on a guy like him who is, I'm with you, who I think one is a lock, two with the Roval and Watkins Glen and all that's in the playoffs. Like he's locked in at least probably a round or two. Every single round, you get more sponsorship money, so they can sell sponsorship on SVG like a mug, dude.
Yeah.
Like he's going to be able to. I don't know. He's going to be able to be in victory lane. He's going to be all over all the big media things, whatever. It's just a big deal all the way around. They're going to be able to sell sponsorship. And with him selling sponsorship and having Anheuser-Busch, they're going to be in good shape.
And he's such a good personality on top of it, too. Like, you put him out there, you get him more publicity, you keep on having him there for Cup races when more people are watching. Man, bold prediction, but could this dude be a most popular driver candidate in the years to come?
I think it's possible.
Listen, here's a good question. I don't understand. We talked about it a bit on the other episode, but I don't understand how Chase Elliott keeps winning that award.
Me neither.
I mean, obviously his last name is there, but I don't know, man. I think it's definitely time for some fresh blood.
No. Yeah. It's like he's got a fan base that's so dedicated to him that it's almost impossible to outvote him for at least the now. Yeah. But definitely as some of these older fans and their drivers start going away, a lot of these older fans really hung on to him, I feel like. And he's got a lot of like younger and older. He's got a good mix, but I feel like a lot of his fans come from the fact that his dad was who he was. So as the Harvicks and the Bushes and everybody else starts getting older and start moving out of the sport, you have a little bit of a recycle in both the fan base and the driver base. And you start adding in Kyle Larson, you start adding in SVG, all these other people that are coming in. There's more personalities coming into the sport that can go out there and compete every single week for a win and for a championship. I don't know. I really think you start seeing the shakeup sometime in the next like 2 to 3 years.
I hope so.
I mean, if you go to a race, he's not the most like worn shirt that's at a race. It's Kyle Larson, and I feel like Kyle Larson and Ryan Blaney kind of dominate the merchandise at a racetrack.
I see a lot of Joey Logano.
Yeah, I see that too.
Yeah, Logano. I've seen something that blows me away, and this has happened just over the last like 3 years. But you go to a racetrack now, there's so much RFK merch.
Yes.
And I know me and Caleb, we've talked about this, but like when I went to Atlanta this year, bro, there's so many like RFK shirts and then Keselowski and Buescher shirts. And I think they're like the blue collar team, and like they have the blue collar guys, just like they're just normal, all American, like not flashy, just the guys that like go to the party and wear boots and jeans guys. And I feel like that's where their fan base comes from. And then on top of going in the last 2 years, winning like 6, 7 races between the 2 years, it's like that obviously helps.
And having one of the best social media accounts of all time on Twitter.
Yes. So like theirs went from like seeing no Roush RFK stuff to like boom. Like I said, going to Atlanta this year, there's freaking RFK stuff everywhere, which is cool because I love them. So
yeah, they're doing a great job.
All right, let's kind of go down the list here. We kind of talked about Riley Hurst. We all agree he's going to have a big learning curve in the Cup Series. Like that's kind of where we're at with that.
It's going to have a big learning curve in life.
Yes. Todd Gilliland staying with the 30. He's going to go to the 34 car. We didn't say that a while ago. He's going to be in the Love's 34 car next year. Todd Gillen's a good little race car driver, man. He's going to be, like I said, I think nothing's going to be wrong with front row and having Gregson and then possibly Zane Smith. Like, that's some young blood, going to be like some pretty cool little young race team all the way around.
Yeah, they should try to get Corey Heim. That would be
exactly. I feel like Corey's probably a half a step away from wanting to leave Toyota at this point.
Yeah.
If nothing happens after this year, and he has another 12-win season, like he's got to make a move. Like he'll make a move, like a business decision.
No doubt. You got to. At some point, you just got to realize when you're being undervalued.
Todd Dillon coming back to full time with colleague.
His career just won't die, dude.
Yeah. I apologize for all the coughing and hacking. I got some kind of sinus stuff going on here. Colleagues, their slogan is chasing trophies, and they're just not going to chase any trophies with Todd Dillon and Daniel Hemrick and the guys they've had in those cars recently. It's just not. They went from being like one of the hottest teams in the garage to just hiring guys that have money but literally cannot do anything and have not ever done anything in any car they've ever been.
That's the wild part of it. It's almost like, I think we talked about this when they first made the move into Cup. I don't know if we talked about this on the pod ever, but it's almost like when they made the move to have permanent Cup teams, colleague money ran dry. Like, he only had enough money to field that Xfinity team every single week with multiple cars, and as soon as he went up into the Cup Series, it became the exact same problem we see all around NASCAR, where he has to fight and plead and beg to get money to be able to fund these cars, and now all of a sudden he's having to do what we've been complaining about for years. Put the worst drivers in the best positions because they are the only ones that can fund the car. And I miss Xfinity exclusive colleague so much because they walked with their heads held high. Matt Colleague walks out, and he's just an electric figure. And I feel like you hardly ever see him anymore. I feel like you hardly ever hear about Colleague racing unless it's something going on with their team or a wreck. And it's disappointing to see the fact that they've from an outsider's perspective, looks like they spread themselves so thin that Ty Dillon is the answer.
That's what I was going to say.
Like, golly.
Mm-hmm.
And they said on Door Bumper Clear, Todd Dillon is the answer because that helps them out more with getting RCR engines. So, not that if RCR is the top of my list for engines, and I'm in a bad spot anyway.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Oh, man.
Next on the list, Justin Haley. We all agree. I think that's going to be pretty awesome to watch next year, having full time.
Yes.
He's getting I believe he's getting Chase Elliott, spotter. Eddie DeHunt is going to be his full-time spotter. They are going to have Rodney Childers on the box. Like, they literally have, like, the all-star lineup on all aspects on that 7 car. So, like, if it doesn't perform, I'm going to be very surprised.
How many wins do y'all think they'll be able to snooker out of that little group there?
Out of all 3? I think Spire wins.
No, I'm just talking about specifically Justin Haley in the 7 with that crew behind him. How many wins do we think Justin Haley will get in the number 7?
I can't go crazy high because they're all brand new, and only because I heard Rodney Childers in his interview talk about how there is still going to be like learning curves and stuff. But like, their expectation is running top 15, top 10 every single week. And if you do that, some wins are going to happen. So like, I think they wind up in victory lane. I do. And I do think they make the playoffs. Obviously not just because I think they're going to win, but because I do think they're going to average like about a 12th place and be in the top 10 regularly.
I wouldn't be surprised by a win, but I'd be surprised by more than 2.
Yeah.
I would be.
Yeah. They will be fun to watch,
I think Carson Hocevar gets a win this year.
I hope so.
As long as he doesn't get his neck twisted off by some other driver at some point in the season, yes.
It's the most it's like the most raw talent in a Cup car that I've seen in a minute. And that's a huge statement.
That is a huge statement.
I know.
But I get where you're coming from.
He's fast, man. He is fast. And, like, once you start hearing, like, I know we've all had that opinion, but then these guys on these podcasts that, like, really, like, older guys, I even mean, like, Mark Martin and guys talking about these guys that are, like, having just raw speed. They just got to, like, tone it down. Once they get, like, the raw speed under control, and I feel like, I don't know, Spire has so much money. They have more money and I see people get on arguments on Twitter about this, but like they don't realize like this how much money Spire has. Like they have Andretti money. That is more money than anyone. So like it takes a minute to put all the right people in the right places. I understand, but like Spire is going to be, when they say Mini Hendrick, they mean Mini Hendrick. Like it's going to be, they are going to be right there competing with wins like the Hendrick Chevrolets are, and I believe that. And they're very vocal about it. So, I don't know. When you go hiring all the best crew chiefs and the best spotters and some of the best drivers, young drivers you can get right now, and then you got an old head like Michael McDowell who can kind of level everybody out, it just seems like a really good mix, in my opinion.
That's a great point.
Next, Shane Van Gisbergen. We had a whole segment on him. He's making the playoffs. Guaranteed.
100%.
If I could put $100 on that, I would do it right now. Zane Smith, no one knows if he's for sure going to front row. It just says that's like the most likely landing spot. Even as up to date as of right now, like no one knows where Zane Smith is going. I don't know. That's like we already said. That's just kind of a weird situation all the way around. How all that unfolded from top to
Absolutely.
bottom. Corey LaJoy is not going to be in the Rick Ware car, I don't believe.
If you were surprised by this, you stopped watching at last year's Atlanta race.
Yeah, I don't know what Corey LaJoy does. I don't know if he goes to...
Hi, welcome to Chili's.
Yeah, I don't know if he's flipping burgers now or what. He said something the other day on his podcast, and he was like, I have so many great opportunities inside the car and outside the car. So I don't know what that means.
Maybe he'll be a spotter. I don't know.
Might be. Sure. I died laughing. It was before all this got announced. Obviously, I know Door Bumper Clear they know everything, obviously, because they're in the garage. But the guy that is on his podcast is I think front tire changer for Blaney is who it is. And they were kind of shitting on spotters. And they said they were joking about spotters on their podcast, and Door Bumper Clear's response was like, well, y'all both might be spotters next year, so you better keep your fucking mouth shut. And I was like, oh. And then all this comes out, and I'm like, oh, that's even like a double burn.
Oh,
you know?
Man. Can you imagine?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what happens to Corey LaJoy. Like I said, you can't step on your own dick as many times as he did this year and expect good things to happen.
I mean, I like the guy. His personality's great. I don't mind him at all. Yeah. I've always been a Corey LaJoy, like as a person, I've been a fan of his, but man, it's totally been, I wanted to cheer for him so bad, and I did for a while. Like I said, after that Atlanta race where he did all that stuff, I was here for it. I was like, man, this dude's going to get a win. He's going to do something big here. He's finally in a great position to make it happen. And, you know, some people, sometimes, I'm not even going to say some people because some people do it both ways. Sometimes you just find yourself in a position that you really need to perform and you don't. And that's as simple as you can put it. He needed to perform and he didn't. So.
And like I said, I think on not performing, it doubles down on it because all the mistakes he made this year were his fault. That like doubled down the whole situation.
When you have more memes than commercials, you got a problem.
Yes. They just announced, I knew he was going there, but they just announced this week, Gragson's going to be in the 4 car for front row. So pretty cool. It kind of looks like Harvick's old font, kind of more blocky style looking, but they're going to have like the 31. I think they're going to have like the 38, 34, and 4 car, I believe, next year.
A lot of these car numbers switching around is going to be really,
really
weird.
Oh, you are not wrong, man. You are not wrong. This is going to be like whenever Penske did that whole like driver and crew chief flop where all 3 drivers and all 3 crew chiefs moved in some way, shape, or like, you know, how it was weird. I remember that because I was so confused every time they would show either Logano or Blaney's crew chief. And then Paul Wolf is now no longer with Brad Keselowski. I was thrown off forever about that. And I feel like this is that just like magnified.
You're going to see the 4 race in the 88, and it's going to be like...
and it's going to be Noah Gragson and a freaking Australian.
it's gonna be between Trackhouse and
oh my gosh,
front row.
Like
that is just
wild.
crazy.
Yeah.
It is gonna be completely weird. I can't wait because at the beginning of the year how they always have like the crazy graphic that they roll through to explain all the changes for the year. I cannot wait to see how long that has to go to explain everything that happened.
Yeah. It's going to be wild. Josh Berry to Wood Brothers, I feel like that's a perfect fit. Just a bunch of blue-collar boys racing race cars.
God,
I love
I
that.
want them to do well so bad, too. I want Wood Brothers to be back up front.
I think they will. They're not going to win every race, but I think they run way better than 34th in points. Well, I know he made the playoffs, but way better than 34th in points.
Absolutely.
We talked about Chase Briscoe multiple times. Martin Truex Jr. is retiring. He's going to do some races with either 2311, Joe Gibbs mix, most likely the 500 from what they say. We talked about McDowell, gave him his flowers. Ryan Preece to the third RFK car with Kroger as a sponsor, bringing that Kroger money in. RFK is going to be balling next year. They're going to have branding across all three cars. I saw they're losing King's Hawaiian because there is a conflict of like Kroger, King's Hawaiian. I think they have their own bread, something involved in their sponsorship. So King's Hawaiian is leaving, which doesn't matter because Kroger is bringing in way more money than King's Hawaiian could ever think about bringing in. So it does not matter.
We will forever remember the outhouse.
Yes. That's pretty much it for Cup on here. I told Ike I wanted to talk about Connor Zillage, though. I think Connor Zillage, and I posted this on Twitter, Connor Zillage has a Noah Gragson top season and wins 10 races.
Where is he going?
To Junior Motorsports in an 88
okay.
car. Fully funded, ready to go. One of the best prospects in all of racing. Won his first ever race he stepped into, just crazy. They were like, we don't know how he's going to perform on ovals, goes to Homestead, runs top 5. Like, dude's going to win a shit ton of races.
I'm excited for it. I don't know as much about him, so.
He'll be fun to watch. He'll be going up against Matt DiBenedetto now. Full time.
Yep.
He's back.
Moving to the 99. I forgot who their alliance is. It RCR maybe?
It was RCR, but I think they said that they're going to go independent. Actually,
okay. They are changing to Chevrolet. I saw that the 99 Chevrolet car. I did see that.
Yeah,
another Chevy in the Xfinity series.
Yeah, that's the whole field. I just got to say, Haas factory team with Sheldon Creed and Sam Mayer is just got to be the lamest team in racing.
Dude, for real.
Honestly. Brutal
that is
team,
beyond
man.
Brutal.
So, that is
like,
what
my
it is.
God.
Now that we've spent an hour talking about that, we can move on to kind of what our favorite moments of this racing season was. It can be anything, I guess. It can be.
Yeah, dude. I'm gonna say mine. Then I gotta hop. Then y'all can talk about the lawsuit.
Okay, cool.
So I know Caleb will want to talk
love
about that.
talking crap about people in suits, dude. And I love talking crap about people in suits.
But
tell us
I'm sure we'll have more off-season episodes. I can say more favorite moments. But my top favorite moment was that first Atlanta race. The finish of that looked just like cars. I literally got to Live Oak, and I was watching on my phone before a round, and I was like, Matt, look at this. Like, Matt Burrell. I was like, watch this finish. And then, like, sure enough, it was like, that three-way, like, just 3 wide across the line, epic finish. Yeah. That one, I was like, we're so back. Like, NASCAR's so back.
And the whole beginning of the season was just like that, too. I mean, it never quit.
Was so good.
Yeah. Overall, this season was great. There were some really, really, really dumb low points of the season, for sure. But overall, like, some of the finishes, I mean, we saw, like, 3 of the closest finishes ever or some shit. Like, it was, like, a pretty solid season.
Yeah, I mean, that Atlanta one got beat later on. It was like...
Was it the Kansas one that beat Atlanta? Okay.
Yeah, that got closest ever. Like, I think it was like 3 of the top 5 closest ever finishes happened this year. It was
Atlanta,
Kansas. The race at Texas with Mayer and Ryan Sieg was like tied with the Crave. I know that's not Cup, but like they count that as like a NASCAR finish. That was one of them. They posted a bunch of like crazy close finishes across all the series this year.
Crazy. But yeah, I gotta hop. But I'll let y'all finish up.
All right, good talking with you, man.
Yeah.
Be good, brother.
I'm excited to listen to hear what y'all say about the lawsuit.
I got to go back and re-listen to what y'all started it off with. Love it.
We haven't spoke about the lawsuit yet, so we were saving that.
Hell yeah. But
so what were your two or however many favorites you had this year?
That's the thing is it's funny that we kind of just mentioned it because I was going to say that my favorite part about this season was how it started. I mean, the whole beginning of this year just being close finish after close finish, and it wasn't interrupted by all the nonsense stupidity about charters. It wasn't interrupted by all this nonsense stupidity about who gets penalized here and there. But as a fan watching the races every Sunday, not going into Twitter, not going into anything else, as a fan watching, I mean, the beginning half of this season was so unbelievably good that I just cannot say how much that was the best string of races that I have seen as a fan personally. And I would love it if we could have stuff like that every single year.
Totally. Like I said, I think, the whole season was just like I said, there were some down points for sure, but some of the races were great. Now that mile and a halfs are kind of back or really back, it just, I don't know, that really helps. You can be excited about, the biggest, I guess, part of the schedule, almost the biggest part of the schedule, being excited about mile and a halfs. That's pretty exciting. And we've said all along that Martinsville race at the end of the year, it helps out that it's playoffs. If they can all the drivers talk so much about that tire. If they can kind of start off, that can be the starting point for this next season. And then, a lot of the guys said, you can go even softer. So, we got it soft now, and that can be the starting point. Now let's try even softer and softer.
I love that you brought that up.
Short track.
I love that you brought that up because I was going to say my second favorite thing was the amount of times we fucked with the tire to try to get it right. Now, I know that's not necessarily a moment. That's a thing that happened all the way throughout the season. But starting from the Bristol race in the spring when that tire literally fell to pieces by the time the run was over, I have not heard someone talk about cords in 4 years, and finally somebody's talking about cords again. I mean, it just wasn't happening, and I love that we're finally doing what the fans have been asking for a year and a half now. Just make the damn tire softer. That's all we're asking for. And if that doesn't work, then you can show it to us, and you can say, here, we made the tire softer. But I feel like sometimes NASCAR's a little more worried about creating a consistent race than they are with creating a good race. They don't want controversy. They just want the race to start and end, and that be it. And as much as they want that by not taking chances, they don't get it by making dumb decisions. So it's if you're going to have a bad race anyway, why not have a bad race where you try to do something to placate the fan? And I love that they finally really started taking chances on that. And I completely agree with you. I cannot wait to see what the short tracks next year look like if they can keep messing with that.
Yeah. And I think they can't go back on it now because I think the proof's in the pudding. It's gradually gotten better every time that they've softened the tire. So it's the proof's there now. So like I said, if that could be the starting point for next year, then we'd probably be in pretty good shape.
Absolutely.
There. So my two favorite moments of the year were. And so first one is Larson winning the Brickyard. After all the stuff that went down with the Indy and missing the Coke 600 in the rain and all this, coming out and freaking dominating the Brickyard 400 was pretty sick. Anytime Kyle Larson has to race when he's has something to prove, that's the best version of Kyle Larson. We've seen that since 2020. But when he has something to prove or feels like he's the underdog or has a chip on his shoulder, I feel like that's when he shines the most.
Oh, for sure. He's the guy that pressure. I know you have the tattoo because it's a Chase Elliott quote, but your tattoo, pressure is a privilege, I feel like applies really well to Kyle Larson too because he goes into those pressured situations. And he looks at it all right, here we go. It's time to show him what I am.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a Chase Elliott quote.
I thought that you said it was a Chase Elliott quote. Maybe I had it wrong.
I don't know. I heard Kirby Smart say
well, there you go.
But I'm here for
either
it.
way. I could have sworn you said it was a Chase Elliott quote back in the day. Maybe I was wrong.
I think Chase Elliott does say that. Possibly.
Damn, we're gonna have to look it up.
And my second moment was the same thing Ike said, unfortunately. But I was at Atlanta getting to watch that race. So, like, getting to take Megan to her first race, her first whole experience being on the start-finish line, like watching 3 cars come off 3 wide for the finish and, like, literally no one knowing who won was, like, pretty lit. Like, that was pretty badass all the way
it was
around.
Awesome. I will never forget watching that finish go down and just absolutely being mind blown and confused for that long about what was even happening. I mean, my God.
Yeah.
Another one that you just have to throw in here because it was one of the most talked about things all year for like a good solid couple weeks. But the Ricky Stenhouse Kyle Busch fight at North Wilkesboro. I mean, how could you not include that on a list of favorite moments? Talk about like just
that was awesome.
A driver that everyone wants to hate and a driver that everyone loves to shit on go together and get into a damn fight about one of them being mad at the other for doing the thing that they're known for doing. It was amazing. Yeah. It was incredible. I loved every second of it. And the build up to it, everything. Like, I wish, like they said back on the podcast at the time, we could just close down the exits to the the interior of the track. So that way, if you get wrecked out, you have to stay there. You cannot leave until that other driver can come up and talk to you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was like even cooler that it was at North Wilkesboro. Yeah. Like that made it, like topped it off.
It was even better. But then the other thing that I think I was really loving was the fact that we got Rockingham back.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm just ready for a cup race there now.
I'll take what I can get.
I mean, we haven't. Yeah, I'll take what I can get too. It's going to be really cool to see those cars race there again. And I haven't seen any. I don't even know what Rockingham looks like anymore. I haven't seen any pictures of it. I haven't seen the nothing like what they got going on. But it'll be like seeing Wilkesboro, you know, on pictures. Like, holy shit, like it's back.
Yeah.
You know? But I think if the Cup or Xfinity and truck race, they race there, goes well and does well and is awesome and everybody shows up and all the things are great, I guarantee you there's a cup race there next year.
Absolutely. And maybe that's part of the reasoning why it didn't get a cup race this year was just we want to make sure that the facility can even work before we commit to having a full-on cup crowd show back up there. Because you know that if the Cup Series was going there this year, they'd have to do like a full-on North Wilkesboro and completely remodel the track. But you're going to have to tell me more about Rockingham because I never got to see it. But it is bigger than North Wilkesboro, I can only imagine.
Rockingham's like Darlington.
There you go. So they probably have more facility and more things that they'd have to do to make it work.
Rockingham is like that's the best like sister track to compare it to.
I need to go back and watch an old race of Rockingham now that you say that. If anybody is listening and wants to tell me a good race to watch on Rockingham, let me know.
I just watched the last 10 laps of the when they went there right after Dale died and Steve Park won. It was a big deal. Like somebody just posted.
You know, that'd probably be the best one to watch then.
And I was so young, I couldn't tell you what even happened in the whole race. I remember that race. I remember Steve Park winning, like that was a huge deal. And Steve Park qualified second in that race and dominated the whole race. But at the end, him and Bobby Labonte are racing their ass off, and they're like side by side. And I think it was either coming to 2 laps ago or coming to the white flag. They're side by side, and they're both like black marks on the asphalt wrecking, and Bobby like pops the wall with the outside of the car. Steve has to drive way down low, and they're just like literally driving all over the place on those. I mean, the last 10 laps of that race are like crazy, and if Bobby wouldn't have popped the wall, they would have been probably too wide the whole last lap, and they'd have been on top of each other coming to the flag.
Golly.
And I didn't realize this. People kind of talked about this too, but like for Earnhardt's last championship, he like beat Bobby Labonte, and Bobby Labonte and Earnhardt had that really close side by side finish at Atlanta. So there's just just all that crazy stuff that was going on at that point in racing.
Yeah.
But something else that was cool that happened. Jeff Gordon qualified on the pole. Steve Park qualified second. But to start the race, Jeff Gordon scooted back a row, so like Earnhardt had the pole. So like that was like a honorary thing for Earnhardt. They did, just stuff like that. I just saw that
cool
whole
stuff.
There was like a post. It's like 10 minutes long, obviously, but it was a video kind of like recapping that Rockingham race. And then they quit racing there in 2004.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So
I love the fact that
been 20
that's
years.
been something that's. I mean, there's a whole Twitter page dedicated to bring the Rock back. So I'm here for it. So that was another really cool thing that happened this year that I was excited for.
Yes, I'm also excited.
How about yourself? What was your favorite? What was your next favorite one?
Those are my two: Larson Brickyard and Atlanta 3-wide. Being there for the 3-wide finish. Those were like my two.
Yeah.
I
mean, shoot, I gotta say at least Ryan Blaney walk-off win at Martinsville again to get into the Final Four. Like doing it 2 years in a row, can't top that kind of stuff. But I mean, overall, I easily can say that this was my favorite season of Cup Series NASCAR in terms of product on the track. Not necessarily every single race. I obviously have a couple here and there that I would prefer, but there was definitely a lot of youthful zeal as being a NASCAR fan that's kind of new to it, where I really enjoyed a lot of races back in the day that I probably shouldn't have. But now that I've seen enough of them go by, and I've seen the good, I've seen the bad, and I've seen the in-between, this series of racing this year definitely produced some of the closest, funnest finishes that I've ever personally seen. And then it also had a little bit of off-track drama. And I'm not even talking about the NASCAR drama. I'm just talking about off-track driver drama that just added to a little spice here and there. So I just am excited about 2025. If we can just pull the short tracks in together a little bit, I couldn't tell you what the solution to the road courses is other than to like demolish a couple of them. But outside of that, I'm not really sure what else we can do to have a better product on track. And maybe take Richmond down like to half a date. That'd be cool with me.
Yeah, I hate that about Richmond. I just, golly, I don't understand. So I have no problem with going and racing internationally. And we've talked about it on here. I just think if we do it, we take Brad Keselowski's idea and we have oval racing internationally. So it's like the NASCAR product that we take around, not. So you're telling me we're going to take a shitty race at Richmond and then trade it for a shitty road course and just in Mexico. So that doesn't really make sense to me. If we're going to take a race away because like they say the whole Richmond thing's weird because Richmond is literally in the top 5 market every single week of like tuning in people. Like Richmond, Virginia, that market is top 5 every single week. They can't sell tickets there. So obviously the people in Richmond are race fans,
but even they know their race is
and it
shitty.
just sucks. It's not Richmond's fault that the racing's shitty. Like Richmond was awesome with the cars back in the day. Like there's so many awesome videos of hardcore badass racing from back in the day. But when I say back in the day, I'm literally talking like 20 years ago. So it's been a minute. Richmond needed that like really high horsepower, really slick tire thing to happen
because of the banking.
Yes, and so once that got took away, even a little bit, 20 years ago, it just kind of ever since it get a little bit more gets chipped off, it just kind of made it worse, over 20 years. So it's not Richmond's fault. I think that's a car problem. But if that's the problem, and we want to take a shitty race and bring a new race, why not bring a damn cool race too?
Yeah.
Not a fucking another road course.
Oh, I'm so sick of. I used to ask for more road courses back when there was only 2.
Because it was awesome when you first started. When in your era of coming into NASCAR, road course racing was top of the.
Oh, it was awesome, and I wanted more. You know what I didn't want? 7 of them. I didn't want all these damn road courses. I don't need
even
4 or 5 or 6 or 7. I just needed like 3 or 4. That's all I was asking for. And now all of a sudden we're in this era where a third of the races are road courses, a third are short tracks, and the rest we figure it out.
And that's the thing, like we got more of them as they became worse.
Yeah, absolutely. But like you said, it's a car problem. I mean, every car that's good at one thing is bad at another, unless you're in 04 to 07.
Yeah, somehow they just had it nailed there, where it was just awesome.
Well, we messed with it. But so we've gone over our favorite moments. What was your two biggest? Oh my God, I can't believe that just happens. Like you're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. We had this happen in the season.
One of my biggest, oh my God, I can't believe that's happening, was watching fucking Tyler Reddick on older tires at Homestead just rip the fence on the last lap. Like, I literally, that was a moment I was sitting there, I was like, what the hell? Like, how? I thought he had no shot. On older tire, even though it was only 2 laps or whatever it was, 2 laps at Homestead, as everybody knows, might as well be 200. Yeah. And to see him do that, and just to see Ryan Blaney, how shocked he was that it happened, and also to see Tyler Reddick, how shocked he was that it happened, for 2 opposite reasons. But that's the first thing that comes to mind, where I was just like, that's when you see those guys and you're like, damn, dude, you are talented. Like, that's something that that's like where a big football player, something that happens and you're like, the average person couldn't do that.
Yeah.
The average person could not put that car between the wall and Ryan Blaney and just be hammered ass all the way through the corner and hold it and win that race.
Yeah.
So that was definitely one of my I remember watching it and just being like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I can't believe that just happened.
Absolutely. Mine was definitely the moment they called the 600 this year.
Brutal.
That was my big one, where I was just like, man, y'all have been building this up for weeks about the double, and it's the biggest race of our entire year. And when they called it for rain, I just threw my hands up in there. I was like, I cannot believe we just called this race. I can't believe that Kyle Larson never even got a chance to sit in his own race car. Like, I know it's a tough situation, and I know NASCAR was put in a tough place, but when they called that race for rain, I was just, my brain fell out. I was like, I cannot believe what I just heard. There's no way this is true.
Yeah. And the way it happened with guys like Joe Gibbs and Denny Hamlin, everybody's like, they told us to get our suits on and put our stuff on and get ready to go. And then after they said that, they were like, we're calling it. It's like,
what is going on here?
I think there's more to that story than the public will ever know.
I almost guarantee it. I almost guarantee it.
Another holy shit moment from this year was Josh Berry being upside down and hitting the wall head on and not being able to put the brakes on.
Oh yeah, that was a wild one.
I remember watching that one and being like, holy shit. And then he's like, he's grinning and smiling like, oh, it looked way worse than it really was. But it was like, damn. He hit the wall upside down, dude. That's as bad. I mean, that's brutal. Yeah. You can't put the brakes on. You're just sliding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, total wild situation. That was definitely scary. I mean, that was probably the most frightened I've been for a driver after God help me out here. A guy that caught on fire and got pinned into the car there last year. Jordan Anderson, thank you. Yep. That was about the scariest wreck I've seen since that. It's like that wreck you just talked about, the Jordan Anderson wreck, and then the Ryan Preece Kyle Larson hit at Dega. Or Daytona, whichever one.
Bad. That was bad. Ryan Preece flipping last year.
Yeah, that was
really bad.
That was bad.
Ryan Newman in 2020 was bad. We were together for that.
Yeah, that was definitely those are the moments that you remember forever and you never forget about them. Like, they're just ingrained into your mind. I'll never forget the Ryan Newman moment when we were quiet for 15 minutes waiting on word on that one.
Yeah, and we didn't get word for a long time after.
My other holy crap, I can't believe this has happened in moment is when Austin Dillon got penalized for his finish and wasn't allowed to enter the playoffs due to a win. A first of its kind call by NASCAR to take away a win for playoff eligibility due to absolute reckless driving. Just going out there and wrecking everybody. And it's so funny because when you first start talking to people about NASCAR, it's like, no, these guys go out there and beat and bang. They do crazy stuff and anything goes. But we finally got told by NASCAR what the edge of anything goes is. and we found it right there.
Yeah.
A right hook and an absolute send into the wall.
Yeah, and the whole right hook thing that's probably where the line got crossed, honestly.
Absolutely.
Like, that's because since, in the last couple years, we've already seen multiple guys get suspended for the right hook thing. So it's like, if that wreck, he pile drives Logano and then maybe he hit someone else in a different way. I feel like if he did it and it wasn't a right hook, that win probably sticks. It's all because it was a right hook.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been popular, but it would have still been a good win.
Yeah, and they ended up saying that G's on that force were the hardest G's for a Joe Gibbs car since the next gen.
Wow.
I don't know if you
I remember hearing it. It's just so wild to hear that. And it was at Richmond.
It's because when Denny's car hit the wall, it stopped.
Yeah.
Like it didn't get to keep going or absorb anything. The way the car hit, it just made the car stop immediately.
Yeah, because it hit it at a direct head-on, 90-degree, nothing about it angle.
Yeah, so I think that's where there was no sliding or nothing. He just hit the wall and stopped dead. So that's like where that was bad. If it wasn't a left hook, it would have the call would have stand, I think, as they say in football.
Yeah,
it would have.
I think so. I think I agree with you on that one. No, it's
all right. Let's get to the lawsuit.
All right, let's do it
here because we got the news today.
Yes, I've got to reread that tweet. If you want to go ahead and read it out, I got to find it.
So what they're saying is this whole fight, they were going to basically, NASCAR wanted to make all those cars run as open cars.
Yes, all the cars for 2311 and all the cars for front row.
Yeah, so they were going to be, and they weren't going to grant them yet the charter, their extra charter, because both of these teams are buying charters from SHR. Yep. Both of them are.
Yep.
They're both going from 2 cars to 3 cars. So NASCAR was fighting that while this lawsuit goes on, they would have to run as open cars. And the teams were fighting that would be detrimental and cause harm to our, financials and or whatever. It would just cause major harm.
Absolutely, because there's a possibility you may miss races due to that.
Yes, and there's a clause, and it's not a clause in every single driver's thing because it keeps being brought up as Tyler Reddick. But the sponsors that are with Reddick and Reddick as a driver, if he's not in a charter car, he can leave to go to another charter car. It's not saying that he will or would have, but it's definitely something that's just in his clause contract because, like Bubba's, they said he's in. He was in. He's locked in to 2311
he
no
doesn't
matter
have
what.
enough weight to be able to pull to make something like that happen.
Which is probably correct. Same thing with some of those other guys that are going to be with front, the younger guys at front row. But a guy like Reddick, he, in his contract, and it's like I said, you only know this because it's been brought up every single week, he could leave if he wanted.
Yeah.
He could leave. So anyway, that's what they were fighting for. And I got something else I want to bring up to you after I say this. Because this came out just last week. So they granted that while the lawsuit goes on, they will be chartered.
I love that.
And they have to, NASCAR, the judge said NASCAR has to approve the sale because in the rules, NASCAR has to approve the sale of a charter going somewhere else. Like if someone wants to buy a charter and NASCAR says no, supposedly it can't, if NASCAR says no, it doesn't have to happen. But the judge said that NASCAR has to approve it. They will all have all 6 charters next year. And there will be 36 chartered race cars, not 32.
See, I love that. I think that was the right decision from the very get-go.
38,
and I absolutely cannot stand that the first judge that was looking over this case decided against the teams because that...
Okay, that was what I wanted to tell you. There's some insight about that.
Oh, is there?
So they changed judges.
I did not know about that.
They changed judges in the middle of this last week. And it got handed to a different judge, and this different judge, his first week in, changes the ruling, okay? I read, and it was a big viral tweet on Twitter, but supposedly there was some sort of conflict of interest because the first judge's wife works for NASCAR.
Ooh.
So there's a whole ordeal. I don't know how true that is, but it was on one of the main people's things.
Let's get our keyboard warriors on this right now.
But super weird thing in there. He gets taken off the case. They put this other guy on the case, and the first thing he does is this ruling.
Which is amazing. Like, this is how it should have turned out from the very beginning, and if you disagree with that, you either work for NASCAR or you're blind. Because at the end of the day, it just makes sense that we have a major contract issue when it comes to these charters. And there's no need at all for the entire season to have to stop for 2 teams to be able to fight this out, because that is the very definition of the exact thing they are trying to sue NASCAR for as it stands. They're suing NASCAR for being a monopoly and taking advantage of the amount of power that they have. And the very first thing that NASCAR does in response to this is get them denied for a ability to be able to race as normal because they're suing NASCAR. I mean, it's a story that literally just feeds into itself. I mean, you're getting sued for monopolistic practices, and your first response to the lawsuit is to do something monopolistic. And I know that was a judge's ruling, but I mean, that's just it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, we're telling you what you're doing wrong, and you're continuing to do it in our face while we're trying to solve this problem. So I could not have been more happy when you sent that tweet earlier today when it said that they could race as chartered teams, because that nothing would be worse than bringing in one of the biggest sports idols of all time into NASCAR in Michael Jordan and running him out within 3 or 4 seasons because you cannot have it in you to change your business practices to make it fairer.
They can't own him. They want to own him. You know what I mean? Or not own him. You know what I mean? They want to
they want to be in control.
Tell him what to do.
And he's just going over there like, nah, you finally found a dog big enough that he can bite back.
That's the thing, and I can't remember if I've said this on the podcast, but I've said it to you. Okay, so NASCAR is worth no one knows what NASCAR is worth because it's all private. It's a private business, so you don't know. But Brett Griffin says if Michael Jordan's got $15 billion, then NASCAR's got $40.
Yeah.
He, just say it. In the, worth or whatever. The only person that's really ever fought NASCAR was Jeremy Mayfield. Jeremy Mayfield's a driver. He's a millionaire. Yeah. Millionaires can't fight billionaires, much less 40 times billionaires. Mm-hmm. Okay? And you got a guy, no matter what, these guys that, like, I've said it on here before, even with $1 billion, a 1 billionaire is not going to fight a 40 times billionaire. It just physically cannot happen. But you get a guy like Michael Jordan who has ungodly amounts of money and continues to make that money every single year outside of racing.
Yeah.
And his net worth does not depend on what racing is. He can fight this fight and not give a fuck.
Absolutely. And he should
NASCAR's
be, and I'm
never
so
had
happy.
anyone. Yes, NASCAR's never had anyone that was big enough to be able to stand up to them because there's rich people in racing, but being rich and being being worth $40 billion is 2 different things.
Yeah.
So that's where they just found it, like you said, found a dog. There's a dog big enough to hunt in this fight.
Yeah.
Now.
And this is just the best thing that could have happened is having this appeal granted, because they're not even asking for damages to be paid. They're just asking to be treated fairly as a member of the sport for the ongoing proceedings, because this isn't a bad faith lawsuit. This is the teams just approaching NASCAR and saying, we need more. We cannot continue to operate under the way that we have it right now. And you need to know that, because you're going to start losing fans, teams, drivers, and talent the longer that this keeps going on. And that's what they're trying to do right now. Denny's not coming onto his podcast every day and cussing NASCAR out. There's a mutual respect there. They understand where they're coming from, but they need to understand where the drivers are coming from. And this appeal being granted just lets them know that, hey, at least in the meantime, you don't have to worry about being completely undersold. And even if you lose this lawsuit, it is what it is. You spend a lot of money on legal fees. But at least give these teams the chance to operate in the same way they would have normally, while also pointing out that the new contract they wanted them to sign is just completely unfair and completely biased towards NASCAR.
Okay, here's my question. Do we have to deal with all this bullshit again in 7 years?
I have a feeling that whenever they do come out with the ruling on this case, it's going to completely shake up the way that charter agreements are even ran. Because I feel like there's going to either... Because they're suing them for monopolistic practices. And typically what happens when you lose a case where someone calls you a monopoly, the SEC will force you to sell off pieces or parts of your organization. So that way there's more competition
whether it be
in the
tracks
market.
or other
It could
things.
be a lot of different things, but it seems like this entire case is centered around the charter agreement. So I think the fairest and most honest way for NASCAR to divest themselves a little bit to give the teams more power, because that's what this lawsuit's all about. I think you see the teams permanently own charters and it become more of a franchise kind of situation like they've always been talking about. But that's my 2 cents from a podcast listener guy just coming in on it. But that's typically what they'd make you do, is like divest in some way in your business to allow other people to come in and compete with you. So that way there's more money across the board for everybody and the consumer's not hurt.
Yeah, that's the thing about this whole ordeal. I think this was explained to... It seems that this was explained to them as a franchise 7 years ago when this all became a thing. And that's like what everybody almost like took it as. And then 7 years comes up and it's like, no, NASCAR, we still own these. Like we own these, or whatever. And it's like, no, I paid, $50 million or whatever some of these guys have paid for these, 25 to 50 million. And it's like, you don't own that. Yeah, it's not yours. I paid for that. And I paid, not just paid, but paid a lot of money for that.
That's,
you know what I mean?
Like
so
a
it's
very
like,
solid point of why I think that they could definitely tell them, like, whoever has a charter right now needs to own those charters outright. There needs to be no ability for NASCAR to take one away unless it's something absolutely fucking egregious down the road. I mean, and even at that point, I think it would still be something that NASCAR itself could not re-own by any way. But I think that would change the way the negotiations happen, because now you're talking to entities that own pieces of your sport rather than entities that pay a lot of money to other people to lease a chance to be in your sport. But
yeah,
it more than likely will. I'm sure it'll have a lot to do with the ownership of the charters, but I also wonder if there's going to be a way in which the courts can force NASCAR to a lot more money to the teams through media broadcast deals or something like that. Or they could, this is like the most extreme example of what could happen, they could force NASCAR to sell or become public or something. I don't know that is possible, that they can make them become public, but they can definitely make them divest a little bit. So it'll just be interesting to see how this all plays out. It's a lot more complicated than I know enough about. But
here's one last thing that I want to talk about. And I feel like this could go, people could look at this two ways. So it was talked about earlier this year that this could happen, but this is now for sure going to happen this coming year. And it's recently posted on Adam Stern's account. NASCAR is going to pay drivers to promote the sport. Upwards from the scales like $100,000 to $1 million.
Really?
Highest of $1 million. So is that saying that like NASCAR is going to pay these guys basically? So there's never been a time where NASCAR has paid the drivers ever. So this is the first for that. Does this mean now they're going to have like contracts with NASCAR for an extra $1 million a year, and the drivers can't be vocal anymore? Or can a driver say, I got plenty of money, I'm not doing that, I'm going to keep doing my own thing? Or does this mean that they're going to do appearances, or they're going to do promote the sport, like appearances, go do stuff, at the local Walmart and stuff like that, like they used to do back in the day, but it was all sponsor driven, not NASCAR driven. So how there's like the owners and the like Coca-Cola, what is it, Coca-Cola Busch, and it was Geico. I know they're leaving. And
like your major sponsors, yeah. Xfinity,
so does that
Geico,
mean,
all that.
So so like they're involved in NASCAR. Does that mean when they go to these things, instead of it being like Ryan Preece or Brad Keselowski going to Kroger and doing like a Kroger promotion thing, like a random driver, whoever is going to go do a Coca-Cola thing? or something.
I just don't know.
That's just me talking. I don't know how this works. So, like, is it because they're going to post on social media and be like, NASCAR's so awesome and all this? Like, what does that entail? And does that mean the drivers can't talk shit basically about NASCAR and Goodyear and the tires and all that? Does it like limit their voice even more?
That's a great question. I mean, great way to look at it too, because I haven't even heard about that yet myself.
I will find it right now and send it to you.
No,
it was semi-recent.
Man, that makes me wonder, because you'd think that as a driver, they would want to have that kind of term pre-negotiated. They would want to know what they were getting into because they have busy lives as it already stands. But that's so strange. I mean, there's 1,000 different ways that could get implemented, but I'm sure it has something to do with drivers in NASCAR talking specifically and saying, okay, what are you willing to do? And we'll tell you how much we're willing to pay you for it. Man, that's wild. That's a wild thing to even hear about. But I totally get where you're coming from, too, with the fact that if they tell you that you're out here promoting NASCAR, but you can't be going out here and promoting NASCAR in a negative light, and since we're paying you to promote us, you're not allowed to talk down on us, which, I mean, talk about having a monopoly. That's a great way to do it. Well, we'll pay you extra money to talk really nice things about us, but we'll take it all away if you say anything bad.
Okay, so here's the tweet. NASCAR plans to have a decidedly driver-centric marketing focus in 2025 as the series starts an incentive program that will pay drivers anywhere from tens of thousands to up to $1 million for their efforts to promote the sport each season.
Me just hearing that, my first initial reaction to that is we really want to have more drivers in our commercials talking directly to the fans, and we'll pay the drivers based off the number of appearances that they have.
NASCAR thinks there have been a lot, perhaps too many different marketing messages in the industry recently, and getting different stakeholders all signing from the same hymn book is going to be a big goal. Singing from the same hymn book is going to be a big goal for 2025.
I hear that as
per Steve O'Donnell.
NASCAR really wants to be in control of the media when it comes to marketing for NASCAR, so they want to bring it in-house, which is a wild move to be making when you're already getting sued for being a monopoly. But that is beyond the scope of that argument. But I look at that as NASCAR really wants there to be one voice for NASCAR, and they want it to be NASCAR's voice. So they don't want a bunch of different people, a bunch of different places talking about NASCAR if they don't have control over it, because they want there to only be one way that you hear about NASCAR, and it's the only way they want you to hear about it.
Yep,
that's how I interpret that, at least.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like got to come from them or something. I don't
know. It also, you know what? It also makes me wonder: could they put a asterisk on the incentive program saying, "Yeah, you can come and be in our commercials and do our media availabilities and do our media things for PR purposes as NASCAR. But if you go and do it for somebody else, we can void all payments to you," or something crazy like that. I mean, it puts them in a weird spot, honestly, like limiting it like that, which it would be one thing if it was like the NFL where there was complete ownership disparity and everybody could have their own opinion about things, like all the teams have to agree on something, all the players as a union have to agree on something. But when it's just NASCAR and nobody else's opinion matters, that's tough.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So
that's monopoly.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like every other day we're hearing about some other way in which NASCAR's trying to take possession of the sport, which I get. But on the other hand, like, you just have to understand that you're bigger than a private company you used to be. There's a lot more going on here now. I don't know. I just think that's more of the same that we've been getting in 2024, where it's just like, oh, they're going to try to put a positive spin on this, but the more that you read into it, I'm right there with you. Like, the more you read into it, the more you really don't know exactly what's going to come out of that.
Yeah. All interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like we covered a lot here today on this almost 2-hour podcast of the off-season.
I don't even know how long it was because I can only see when I last dropped out and came back in, so I'm only seeing an hour. But yeah, that's a good.
We're at 1 hour and 45.
Love it. Well, if you want to know how much we love NASCAR, we pulled a longer podcast off-season than we did on-season.
Yes. So thank y'all for listening. Like I said, we're going to do a couple more of these this off season, a couple more like history I think things like our favorite moments all time, stuff like that. There's going to be plenty to talk about throughout the offseason with more of the stuff coming in. But I'm Dawson Edwards. You can find me on Dawson Edwards Music all across the board. Follow Raised Rowdy Racing, Matt Burrell, Raised Rowdy Nicky T, Ike on his platforms.
Absolutely.
Caleb.
And yo, what up? My name is Caleb Conrady, and you can find me at Caleb Conrady across the board, everywhere you find your fine and lovely NASCAR news. And yes, thank you all for listening. We really appreciate it. I know we don't get around as much during the off season, and we've been a little sporadic lately, but we love doing this, and we love having everybody listen to it. Honestly, it's the only thing that keeps Dawson waking up every morning is knowing that he's a part of this Raised Rowdy Racing podcast. So if it wasn't for this, he really wouldn't have much to be excited about throughout his day. So
yeah, I wouldn't have much going on.
Yeah, thanks for giving him something to do every day. I mean, we love the guy. It's tough being Dawson. It's a pretty boring life, you know. But either way, we appreciate y'all listening, and dude, I can't wait to do another one. We'll have to come around with our season 2025 predictions here soon, because before we know it, the 500 is going to be starting.
Season Thunder.
Yeah, another preseason Thunder.
Yeah,
Let's
buddy.
go. I love it.
All right. Thank y'all very much.
Hell yeah, we love y'all. We'll see y'all later. Adios.